all your stuff. What can figure it out? That's how it chooses you.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi.
Hello, Teresa Sparks.
Hello, Claire Patton. What are we doing? Why are we here?
Why are we here? Look, you and I talked. Last week was effing rough.
Yeah, it was. I can't believe it that it was just the two of us. And I know it wasn't, because we had a conversation in one of my classes where we all sort of looked at each other and we were like, what the fuck is going on? Everything is so hard right now.
Most people I know had a rough week. And I mean real rough, rougher than me. And even Felicia Day, when streaming a couple days ago, was like, what the fuck is going on? She said she went and did retail therapy. She found some gift cards for Madewell she had forgotten about and just went and bought a bunch of shirts. And then she was like, I think Mercury's in retrograde. And she goes, I don't know if it really is, but that's just always what I say. And then as she's streaming, she goes, let's check it out. And she goes online. She said, oh, you guys, fucking 6 planets are in retrograde right now.
Yeah.
That explains it. For me, it was a week of bad hair days.
Oh, God.
Heartburn, anxiety, and poor sleep.
No. The trifecta. Bad hair, heartburn, and bad sleep. Whew.
That's right. And anxiety. Bad sleep. See, anxiety.
Oh, Lord. It's the worst. I didn't want to do anything. Like, literally, I was like, every single thing was too much or annoying or boring, or I was like, no, just no to all of it. You should really study. You haven't. No, I'm not. Can't make me. And so I took a quiz I didn't study for, really. See how that goes.
Yeah, we will.
I'm not doing it. You can't. Nope. Not doing that either. Nope. I bought all of my Christmas presents. I did do that.
That's cool.
Well, I'm pleased that someone else thought that buying things might be a solution, because that's definitely where my brain went. I was like, you know what needs to happen is I need some stuff in this house. I need to go get new stuff.
If I had any money, there'd be stuff happening.
Yeah.
I've said it before, everyone. I will say it again. Teresa and I have rules for each other.
Mm-hmm.
This is how good friends lightly parent each other. If someone has a bad week, we ask each other, A, have you been drinking enough water? B, have you been eating clean, whatever that means to you? C, have you been on a walk? Have you moved your body a little bit somehow? And D, have you gotten sunshine?
Mm-hmm.
And we might add E, have you talked to a good friend?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's key. I always come back to that. And the answer to all or one of those questions is always no when I feel like shit.
Yep.
Always.
It's like magic. It's like, oh, I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't. Okay. This is why it's the perfect list, because the origination of it was, I'm not allowed to worry about my mental health. I'm not allowed to spin out of control with anxiety and pensiveness and ruin my life by overthinking it, unless the answers to those questions are correct. Unless I'm actually taking care of the physical organism, I'm not allowed to wonder what's wrong. That has to be first.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, right? Oh, I just don't understand. You're fucking dehydrated and sad. Yeah, you haven't talked to anyone you love. It's not a big mystery. It's not, my place in the universe. Have a glass of water and take a walk, man.
So you and I had a conversation late last week in which we were both just like, what is going on? Have you had a hard week? Yeah. Have you had a hard week? Yeah. Do you feel like this? Yeah. Do you feel like this? Yeah. Just kind of on the same page about everything.
Yeah.
That's so great to just not feel alone.
Yes.
But the thing that we ended up talking about and what I wanted to bring up is that we are in a seasonal transition. We're going from fun times, sunny summer, to the natural cycle of death.
We're closing down.
And that is hard. And that's always been hard for me. But I find that now that I'm gardening, it's even harder. I feel like I'm dying.
Oh.
And that's a lot of what my anxiety cycles around is I think I'm dying, right? That's where my brain goes. Heartburn, I'm dying. Okay, great. Good. Let's figure out the plan, man. Who are you going to leave your salt lamp to? I don't know. What will be my legacy? I mean, this is what happens,
Yeah, I know. A little heartburn and suddenly, it's a referendum on your entire physical existence in this incarnation, right?
Yep. If you had a rough week last week, we feel you.
Yeah.
Go through the checklist. Drink water, move your body, get some sunshine, talk to a friend, and eat clean. And maybe that'll help. After that, you can worry about your mental health and seek help if you need, or, find some kind of support. But before that, just do the basics. Back to basics, people. It's fall.
I like your persistent attempts to insert taglines that we haven't discussed in 2 episodes. That's making me pretty happy. Back to basics, people. That's hashtag.
I just really want a lifestyle podcast, which I'm horrible at that kind of shit, just where I can tell people what to do.
Yeah.
To get it together, everybody. Else, I'm fine.
And it's okay if you can't do the things on that checklist. Like, if it's too much for you to do that, that's okay too. You don't have to. But don't worry about yourself. Don't worry about yourself until you're doing those things. Like, you're allowed to not be able to handle it. Like, that's totally... I've been there. I was there very recently. But then when you can do one, do your best. Even if your best feels really bad to you, just do your best.
That's a really good point, Teresa. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, I mean, there's no shame in not being able to even do that stuff. Story of my damn life. Like, what? I have the conversation with myself every time. There's the little Teresa in my brain going, Did you drink any water? I drank 0 water yesterday, so?
That's stupid. That's not the solution. It's clearly more important than just that.
This is clearly about my legacy.
Yes. Legacy. Oh my God. Yeah, so last week was very hard. And it is better. It is improving. Partially because I have been doing the things on the checklist, which is nice. When we spoke, I was like, oh, thank God. Because, of course, when my answer to the world is no, the person who feels that the strongest is you. Because we do this thing together.
Podcast? No.
No, none of it. So my concern is always, I'm having this thing happen. Is it going to destroy my relationship with Claire? Like, is it going to get to that point? That's where I go. It's not, am I going to die? I'm like, is it going to destroy my relationship?
That's your legacy.
A legacy of broken relationships. When I just say no. The fact that you were in the same place and we talked about it and came up with a plan for how to deal in the moment and in the future and all of that. Yeah, it's always wonderful to discover you actually aren't alone.
Agreed.
And if even Felicia Day is feeling it, I mean, my goodness.
The clearest skin in the business. And she's still got problems. Hang in there, everybody.
Yeah.
We're going to make it. It's going to be okay. It might even be awesome.
Oh, yeah. The potential for awesomeness does exist. Let's not forget.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the podcast, It Chooses You. I'm Claire Patton.
And I'm Teresa Sparks. She and I talk about things we like together. I tell her stories. She tells me stories. It's a good time. We like each other. Welcome. We're happy you're here. Please download, like, and subscribe to this podcast. We also have a Patreon you can check out if you super like us. It's /It Chooses You. All right. What are we talking about today, Claire?
Teresa, today we're talking about my particular area of expertise, fashion. Just to clarify, because some of you don't know me, it is, in fact, not my area of expertise.
Oh, no, they know that if they've heard the podcast, because they know that I always wear a black t-shirt and you always wear a purple t-shirt.
That's right.
I think there are context clues.
Hey, I wear a leather bracelet. I figure that's
I have
fashionable.
a ring on today.
This is true. We're posh as fuck.
We are.
This all started because there is a Texas fashion tradition that my cousin and I thought was everywhere and just discovered last week that it is a Texas thing. I think it's spread a little into Louisiana and Oklahoma, but it is the homecoming mom.
Don't know what that is.
Yeah, not a thing. Probably 90% of you out there thinking the same thing. Well, I thought it was something they do everywhere for homecomings. It's a tradition at homecoming weekend for football. It is a large fake chrysanthemum with all kinds of bling that students wear. And it has ribbons and it'll have your school colors and it'll have sparkly letters and lots of frills and ruffles. And it's just this huge corsage that you wear. Most people do it. It's an expression of school spirit and an expression of we support our team and our school. The origins aren't super clear, but I think it started in the 50s and 60s. It began as a corsage with a live flower that typically a man would present to his date. Since then, they've started to use fake flowers. Everybody Google these because they're different sizes and different regions and cities in Texas have particular traditions associated with them, but they are huge. they're typically worn on one side, but some of them are so huge that the students have to wear them center of their clothing, and the ribbons can reach all the way to the floor.
Yeah, I'm looking at them right now. I mean, some of them have stuffed teddy bears affixed to them. That's how big they are. It's basically a dress. One of them is in the shape of Texas, and it is twice as wide as the girl wearing it. Wow.
In the tradition of everything's bigger in Texas, I mean, that's real. So some of them are ginormous. Then there are more subtle ones, but none of them are subtle.
Yeah, right. Subtlety doesn't seem to be the guiding principle here. That's true. They're amazing, though. They're very sparkly. They're very sort of like performatively feminine, ruffly, frilly, sparkly. And they all seem to be variations on a theme. Like the style is pretty set, it seems, and it's all just sort of variations within a pretty standard format. And oh my God, there's an Etsy store that sells them, and some of them sell for $350. Custom mega mums available.
That is the homecoming mum. Its function in terms of our discussion today is just that it's what got me thinking about fashion and the idea of belonging, and how fashion can be an expression of our desire to belong, and it can also be the source of oppression and the way in which a society ostracizes or refuses to let people fit in.
If you're someone who doesn't believe in this and doesn't choose to wear one, it's not like this is a subtle situation. People are going to know you aren't wearing one.
Right. Right.
You're not going to get away with anything here.
I'd like to start a little bit more on the personal side today and talk about my own relationship to clothing. For me, it's impossible to separate my relationship to clothing from my relationship to my body. When I was a kid, clothing was a really fun thing. It was another way to play, but at a certain point that began to shift. When I first started thinking about this, I'm like, oh, when I was a kid, I had fun with clothes. And then I thought, actually, it shifted for me early on, and probably too early. When I was in kindergarten, I owned this pair of shiny silver shorts. They were like metallic, and they had these metallic blue stripes up the side. They were probably kind of like hot pants. I loved these shorts. It was the 80s, what can I say? They were my power shorts, if I can coin a phrase.
I love little 5-year-old Claire. I have a big meeting in kindergarten this morning. I have to wear my power shorts.
That's right. I loved Wonder Woman at the time, and the shorts were not in any way associated with Wonder Woman or evoked her directly, but that was who I felt like I was when I wore them.
Mm-hmm.
So one day I wore the shorts to school. I believe it was the first time I wore them to school. And I was probably doing like some roundhouse kicks to imaginary villains or something, when this boy in my class came up to me and whispered in my ear, "Those shorts make you look sexy."
Ew, how old were you?
I mean, kindergarten, so what is that, 6?
5, 6? Oh my God. Ugh.
I mean, and who knows, did he have older siblings where he heard that word and he didn't know what it means, but he thought it was something you say to a female, or who knows? In that moment, something was taken away from me.
Well, because it had been about you. It had been about how those shorts made you feel in yourself, and you felt powerful. And then someone comes up, and the assumption behind that is that you're wearing them to get attention from others. That it's somehow now about other people seeing you, and about what other people think of you instead of your own personal power. Yeah.
That's so true. I felt like my joy in my body, the power that I felt wearing those shorts, became something that was now tinged with something that made it much more complex. Yes, this idea that it wasn't for me, it was for someone else.
Or that he thought he could take it.
Yeah. As I think about the male comments on my clothing as I grew up, it either attracted unwanted sexual advances, or if I dressed like too casually, comments on how I would be so attractive if I tried harder. It did feel like something was being taken away from me over the years. I'd put clothing on for me to suit the way that I felt or that I wanted to feel, and suddenly some dude, and women too, would make it about them.
Yeah.
Then as I became a teenager, clothing really became a way to belong, to fit in. So the popular kids would wear certain brands, which I'm sure it's still like this somewhat. For us at my school, it was the Z Cavarici jeans. Do you know these?
No, like the Texas mom, this is a local phenomenon.
I think it was. They were usually acid wash jeans, but they were...
Yes.
They kind of ballooned at the hips and then tapered at the ankle. The distinguishing mark was a vertically written Z Cavarici on a label that was on the front of the zipper. And that label was everything. So at this point in my relationship to fashion, not only is there issues of sexuality and sexism and my relationship to my body, but now there's money. Then you throw money in it, right? Because all these fashion labels are expensive and we were not wealthy. I felt early on that this race of trying to fit in by having the right clothes and the right brands was a race I could never win.
Exactly. This is not worth my time. I'm going to have to come up with a different stance because I'm not going to do that and win.
Yeah, I remember kind of giving up on that at a certain point. Like, I just can't do it. I do not have the stamina or motivation for this fight, you guys. It's definitely true for me, but I think it's true for a lot of people that fashion, the way that we present ourselves to the world, is a loaded and complicated topic.
Yeah. The first time I had a friend who said, I look at what people wear to tell whether or not I want to talk to them. And I was like, what? And then I was like, why did you want to talk to me? Because I wear clothes that are not flattering or attractive on their own. He was like, no. Like, once I talked to, like, I also learn about people by talking to them. It's not the only thing that I use to tell whether or not I want to, like, pursue friendship or whatever. But it's definitely the first way. I was kind of mad and offended in the moment, but then I was like, of course it is, because that's what you see. Like, we see people first, right? And so you do make those judgments based on what they're wearing and what they look like and all of those things. I was surprised he was able to, like, say it as though it was obvious instead of something distasteful that he should hide, which is my approach to it. Like, don't admit that you do that.
At least he was naming it, right?
Yeah.
I don't personally feel like I've ever had a strong personal style. I did in high school discover vintage clothing and went a bit towards the goth side of things. It's so funny to think of me as a goth, but yes, I was. I've reflected on that a bit this week, and I really think that it was a way for me to reclaim a bit of that power, because goth is seen as scary. In my mind, in some way, I was like, stay the fuck away. I don't need your comments. I don't want your comments. And then there was also something a bit sexy to me about goth. So it was this line of sex and power that I was experimenting with that was my way of claiming something of myself again. I am not particularly goth now. In my purple shirts. They call me the purple goth. I dress for myself these days, but I'm home so much that it's really just for comfort. I wear a lot of jeans and t-shirts, although I do have a couple of shirts that are town shirts that are my favorites. The nicer ones.
When I go to the grocery store, I like to wear my nice shirt.
That's right, my town shirt. Fashion isn't somewhere that I'm particularly investing a lot of energy or receiving a lot of joy right now. I would like to, but I just don't want to shop.
Shopping is challenging. Well, and I think that points to the fact that, at least for me and you, and maybe for others, how our body feels and how our body is perceived is almost directly overlapped by what we wear and how the clothes themselves are perceived. I love certain styles of clothing. I definitely have preferences for the cuts and the lines that I think are beautiful in clothes. Unfortunately, very few of those actually look good on my body. And so the things that I like don't look good on me, according to me. They don't fit correctly. They aren't comfortable. And so I have a weird dissociation with it. Like, I know that that's what I like, but when I try to use it for my own empowerment, it doesn't work out.
Right.
And so that's challenging. I'm always chasing an ideal when I'm shopping, and that's why shopping is a bummer. Because it's very, very hard to find the center of the Venn diagram where it's equal parts. Is it comfortable and functional in my life? Does it feel like it represents a part of myself that I want to have out there in the world? Can I afford it? And do I feel good once I'm actually in it? And so finding the sweet spot in there is really challenging anyway. And then to have to do it in public. I remember going to the store with my mom as a teenager and trying on every single thing in the store in my size and still not finding something that I liked. And my mother hated shopping. And so there's that additional, like, I'm spending her money. She hates being here. I can't find the thing I like. And so I learned relatively quickly, like, you settle for something that's close enough. And even if you hate it, and even if you feel weird in it, that's what you're going to wear. That's what it is.
I really relate to that. This is good enough for you.
No, we don't get what we want. Is it close enough? Well, who decides what's close enough? You do.
Don't inconvenience anyone.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And don't inconvenience anyone by what you're presenting to the world, right? What if it makes people uncomfortable? What if it makes men feel sexual feelings? Oh my God, they might have to just go deal with that on their own instead of putting it on you. That never happens.
We would be remiss if we were doing an episode about fashion and we started the episode talking about how you tend to wear clothes you can garden in because the garden is very important and you exist very much in your home. I feel like if we don't talk about Moira Rose, we're definitely missing a step because there's something so wonderful about someone who refuses to acknowledge the context they're in because in their mind, they are in a different context. She is carrying her context with her in her mind and dressing for that instead of looking at her surroundings as though they are meaningful to her. Her fashion is an act of defiance that I absolutely adore, and I needed to say it.
Oh, yes. Moira Rose, fashion goals.
We both grew up in very casual, like, those kind of clothes were never going to be relevant to our daily lives as children. We were not brought up to expect that kind of couture would never be necessary for us. I'm just imagining wearing her dresses to junior high and the amount of reproach I would have received. You have to have a lot of confidence to dress like that when you're not in a context where people are dressing like that.
Exactly. Because you're not belonging in that moment.
You're choosing not to. Yeah, exactly.
It's the triumph of the individual over the group. I don't care.
That's right. This is what I think of myself, and I don't care that it doesn't match what's going on here.
Exactly. We can safely say that fashion is a complex topic for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
As we've just discussed, it can be seen as a source of trauma and pain, and it can also be a source of empowerment and beauty. The thing I find strange about it is that fashion is such a practical thing, right? We need clothing to protect our bodies from the elements, but for all of history, we've used it to create beauty and send signals to the world around us.
Mm-hmm.
Fashion has been used throughout history to send coded messages to like-minded people. In Norway, for example, the color of your hat while you're hiking can signal your romantic availability.
I love that.
The person who told this story said that the reason why there's a hat code is because hiking is the only occasion on which you might actually speak to strangers in Norway.
Ah.
A red hat means that you're taken, green means you're available, and an orange hat signifies that you're thinking about it. You're open to a conversation about something. Similarly, and you may know this one, Teresa, some of our listeners may know this one. In Hawaii, a flower behind your left ear means that you're married, and a flower behind your right ear means that you're single.
Didn't know that one.
And of course, there's the handkerchief code, which you brought to my attention, which started in New York in the 70s. Leather men and women, gay men and women, would use different colored bandanas in different pockets of their jeans to indicate their sexual preferences and fetishes to each other secretly. And this is obviously an example of communicating code in fashion out of a sense of necessity, right? These aren't conversations we can have openly. We don't want to draw any attention to ourselves because oppression, it could be downright dangerous. Another code that I found out about is that in England, a lanyard with sunflowers on it means that you have a hidden disability. And so workers in a lot of businesses, train stations, airports, things like that, use this to identify people with disabilities and to offer assistance when needed.
That's very sweet. I like that very much. Like hidden disability would be a non-visible location of oppression, maybe, right? And so there's a really lovely amount of trust in offering that information via the lanyard and then in the people who are looking for that in order to help.
People who know that care.
Mm-hmm.
So you know when you're offering that information through this code that the people who are informed are the people who care and who will offer help.
Mm-hmm.
In China, your zodiac year is unlucky. So it's traditional to wear red somewhere on your body every day to combat that bad luck. The problem is that in a workplace setting, if you're wearing red every day, because your zodiac indicates your year of birth, people can pretty easily figure out what year you were born and how old you are. So in China, a tradition started of gifting red underwear to other people so that they could secretly wear their red underwear and combat the bad luck technically, but not signal to the outside world their exact age.
That human beings are complicated and fascinating.
A small iron or stainless steel ring on your dominant hand's pinky finger means that you're an engineer, specifically an engineer who has signed an ethics pledge.
Where does that come from?
It's called an engineer's ring. It's a ring worn by members of the Order of the Engineer. It's in the U.S. It's a group of engineers who are certified professional engineers or graduated from an engineering program that's accredited.
And that order has a certain set of ethical guidelines?
Mm-hmm. I'm reading from Wikipedia now. The ring is usually a stainless steel band worn on the little finger of the dominant hand. This is so it makes contact with all work done by the engineer. Rings used to be cast in iron in the most unattractive and simple form to show the nature of work. I love that.
I like that a lot.
The ring is also symbolic of the oath taken by the wearer and symbolizes the unity of the profession and its goal of benefiting mankind. The stainless steel from which the ring is made depicts the strength of the profession. That's from Wikipedia. Thank you, Wikipedia.
Thank you, Wikipedia. That's a spell. That's some proof that engineers are witches. Like, having it touch all the work you do, that's a spell, guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's super cool. It also points to one of the things that's most interesting about these, like, small coded pieces of fashion, which is that they can be relevant to a very small subset of people. Some of them might even only be relevant to a certain school or a certain class at a certain school.
Yeah.
And then some of them are broader and relevant to larger groups of people.
I just like the idea that it's this little wink. Like, hey, you're an engineer. I'm an engineer too. We have a secret club.
I love it.
And we're going to know. We're going to walk around. We're going to know who everybody is. Okay, I've got a few more. I can't say I feel 100% sure about this one. I mean, it's out there now, so maybe it's a thing. But apparently, if you wear a piece of clothing with a pineapple print on it while you're on a cruise, it signifies that you are a swinger.
Oh my God.
Any swingers out there, it chooses you podcast@gmail.com. Email us and tell us if that's true.
That's just a combination of things I don't want anything to do with. Cruises and swinging. God, it sounds like a nightmare.
It just sounds like a lot of work.
Pineapple prints. Oh my God. It's no. Just no.
Apparently, in the U.S. military, I didn't know this, soldiers don't wear hats inside unless they're armed in an official capacity. So if you ever see a soldier indoors with a hat on, it signifies that they are carrying.
Oh, interesting.
If you ever just want to know at a glance when you're watching West Wing. Afro-Surinamese women wear colorful and elaborate folded outfits called kotomisi. The dress and the headscarves are starched with cassava flour, and the particular shape and folds of the headscarves are used to send messages to other women. The way it's folded is a coded message. So these messages are things like, wait for me at the corner, let them talk, hold your tongue, and my personal favorite, I am a grown woman in my own house. I can do as I please.
Oh my God.
Teach me how to project that to the world.
I love that.
Even the fashion in Bridgerton holds secret meaning, Teresa.
Oh my goodness.
I found out that the Bridgerton family are dressed in pale blues, greens, silvers, and even soft pinks to signify their social class. The Featheringtons dress in bright colors to indicate their status as outsiders. The Duke's family colors in the books are red and gold, so when Daphne marries Simon, she begins to dress in shades of purple, which is a mix of her family's blue and the red of the Hastings.
As you know, I did take a step and read those books, which only took about an afternoon. They're relatively straightforward. And the Featheringtons make me laugh really hard because the colors, their mother believes they are the height of, like, color. She's looking at, like, the emotional resonances of color. She's like, green is a sad color. We never want to wear green. Meanwhile, then she's dressing her daughters in these colors that are incredibly unbecoming and garish.
Yeah. Fashion is also a function of class and race and can be a source of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
There are cases throughout history of people literally being put in jail for dressing outside their given station. These laws that restrict the way people can dress are called sumptuary laws throughout history. The flamboyant dress, for example, adopted by pirates, was a direct rebellion against sumptuary laws. This, of course, extends especially to women. In the Women in Disguise episode we did, I told the story of Hannah Snell, who secretly dressed like a man for years, entered the military, and had a military career dressed as a man. In the U.S., in Connecticut, in 1676, Hannah Lyman was among 3 young women brought to trial, of course by Puritans, for wearing silken hoods in a, quote, flaunting manner, in an offensive way. Ugh, I just hate the cut of her silken hood. It's so flaunting.
Yeah. I will say, though, if we're talking about how men and women are affected by these kind of laws, I'd say that women have come a lot further than men have. It is still, I would say, much more socially unacceptable for a man to wear a dress in public than it is for a woman to wear pants, obviously, right?
Exactly.
That's really interesting, too. That, like, of all the laws passed to control our bodies, we've made some progress on the coverings anyway. Men's clothing choices are restricted.
Not surprisingly, this also extends to race. In the late 1700s in Louisiana, the governor passed something called the Tignon Laws. So under Spanish rule of Louisiana, slaves were technically allowed to buy their freedom. Some slaves were able to do that, not a ton. People of color began buying their freedom and making money. They started to dress up. Particularly the women were wearing jewels. They were putting feathers in their hair. The women looked wealthy and they were beautiful. Obviously, at this point, interracial relationships weren't out of the question either. Out of a fear that Black women were beginning to compete with white women, the Tignon Laws were passed in 1786, requiring Black women to cover their heads. The language of the law directly says they're threatening the social order by looking beautiful.
Explicitly, we are attempting
Oh,
to.
yes.
Yeah.
And the law also specifically mentions we don't want them competing with white women. This was an obvious attempt to keep Black women in a subordinate role. Of course, it completely backfired. The women used their tignon to make even bolder fashion statements, taking those jewels and those feathers and attaching them to their tignon and creating tignon out of beautiful and striking fabrics. When the U.S. took control of Louisiana, the Tignon Laws were abolished, but Black women continued to wear them as a sign of resistance and solidarity with one another. Here at It Chooses You Industries, we're all about looking at the significance of the small things. So, Teresa, let's talk about fucking pockets. Speaking of small things in women's clothing.
Let's do it. Pockets are the best invention.
They are, but pockets for women suck.
Yeah.
How many dresses have you owned? How many skirts have you owned that had no pockets? How many jeans have you owned? Try and put your hand in and just the first knuckle goes in. Because that's all you get of the pocket. Or have you ever had fake pockets?
Yeah, the worst. How many times have you put your car keys in a pocket, gone on a roller coaster, and had the car keys fall out of your pocket under the roller coaster, and spent 3 hours at the end of the night negotiating with park security to get under the roller coaster to look for your keys?
Every day. Never. And why? Why did you lose your keys? Because the fucking pockets were tiny.
Yeah.
Well, Teresa, what have I told you? There's a magical realm called Europe and America from the 17th to the 19th century in which women had amazing pockets.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've seen the bag on a string that's tied around your waist under your skirts.
That's exactly where we're going.
All right.
They are called tie-on pockets.
Okay.
And I'm bringing them back.
Yeah.
So at this time, there were no shitty interior pockets in women's clothing. Instead, women wore belts with a pair of pockets attached to them under their skirts. It was like this hidden pocket where I guess they kept their switchblades if shit got crazy at court. I don't know. And get this, their skirts had slits in them on the outside, and the pocket had a slit on the outside, so they could just reach through their skirts into their pocket and pull out whatever it is they needed. These pockets, get this, were huge, big enough to carry snacks. You could put like an apple or an orange in there.
A salami.
Exactly.
Going on a picnic. I got a knife, I got a salami, I got a small cheese, I got some grapes. Let's go.
And a cutting board.
Cutting board on the other side.
On top of that, women would embroider decoration or otherwise embellish their pockets. There's a picture of one from the late 1700s on the Met website. It's a flat yet rounded shape, similar to pockets today, and it's embroidered around the edges with small red roses, wrapped in their own vines, each connected to the next. At the bottom center, there's what looks like a little outline of a hill, and a bunch of flowers emerging from behind the hill, larger flowers, the centerpiece of the decoration. They're all in tones of red, yellow, bright pink, and white, and they resemble dahlias, dandelions, roses, and marigolds. The top center of the pocket has a finished slit on it, because I guess you need the slit, as I said, in both the skirt and the pocket to reach it. This slit is filigreed with more small roses and vines. It's beautiful. It's one of those objects that the more you look at it, the more you see. It's a piece of art, and only the wearer would ever see it.
Yeah, that's the thing I like the most about it, is this. It's incredibly detailed. It took a very long time to do. It's gorgeous, and no one sees it.
It's like a secret.
Yeah.
Pockets were often made and given as gifts between friends. I mean, that's friendship right there. I love you enough to make something especially for you with my own 2 hands, but get this, it's practical. Teresa, I want to tell you right now, I love you enough to present you with pockets.
Oh, thank you. If you presented me with pockets, I would wear them. I would figure out how to make that happen. Well, I also love it's like the gift of privacy. I'm going to give you a gift that will allow you to have a secret if you want it, because no one's going to get into your pocket except you. Here, have some privacy for Christmas.
Let's face it, a pocket is its own secret world. And this reminds me, there's an artist named Lisa Balso who for a year collected the items she found in her 7-year-old's pockets at the end of the day, and then made a photo series and a book about it. The book's called Bella's Pockets, and it's really delightful. Lisa calls the contents of the pockets mini museums. Isn't that sweet?
Yeah, what happened today? What was important today? In the pocket it goes.
It's a little story. I wrote down a few collections that I particularly liked. One is a cocktail sword, rubber bands, an eraser, a lunch money reminder, and a small plastic baby toy. Another day was a paper note folded into an accordion shape that says, I love fairies, a piece of yarn, a marble, and a piece of copper tubing. Another good one was crushed cookie and a piece of metal. And my favorite, pencil stubs. Just pencil stubs. Just 4 of them.
That's what was important today.
Exactly. So back to tie-on pockets. I wanted to give you an idea of what women would carry in these pockets. There's an ad from 1725 for a lost pocket, and it says the contents of the pocket were a silver purse, a pair of gloves, a ring, a toothpick case, a handkerchief, a key, and a thimble.
That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot.
It was lost because it came untied and fell out the bottom or something?
I don't really know the story of why it was lost.
You don't know the story of why a pocket from 250 years ago was lost? Come on, Claire, get it together. I expect research to be done on this podcast. Come on.
I like to think that she found it, though.
Someone's like, hey, I found that, and I had no idea of contacting you because phones don't exist, and you didn't embroider your address on the pocket.
Exactly. As we continue throughout history, women's clothing became more and more fitting to the body, and it became more difficult from a design standpoint to hide pockets, because if you have large, bulky pockets, you, quote-unquote, ruin the silhouette of the clothing. And by the end of the 1700s, women began shifting to small purses rather than hidden pockets. And that's it right there. A step backwards for women. Mm-hmm. That's one moment where we lost our power. The secret thing became something for public consumption. So you take the secret, the pocket, and you turn it into the purse, which is public. Pockets would ruin the female silhouette, as I said, because women are decoration.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, around the 19th century, pockets were more commonly built into clothing like today. But these pockets were awkwardly placed, like near the hem of the skirt. So how are you supposed to get something out of the hem of your skirt? While men's pockets were placed in practical location near the hips, for example, or the breast.
Easy to get to, where your hand naturally goes. You don't have to contort to access it. Yeah.
Not only that, there were ample pockets for men. There still are. At this point, pockets became a political hot button, with some women fighting for pocket equality while the mainstream pushed for purses. We arrived to today. There's a website called The Pudding. It's a data website, and they measured pockets in 80 pairs of popular brand name jeans. They found that on average, women's pockets are 48% shorter and 6.5% narrower than men's pockets.
I love that they did this research. This is the kind of research we need to be doing. Practical, tangible.
Exactly. There are some theories as to why pockets for women have always been lackluster. One is that it forces women to buy purses or have men carry things for them. Basically, sexism. At the very least, it's putting appearance above function. And that's a clear message. Your importance lies in your aesthetic contribution to the world. My personal theory is that the destruction of the pocket for women is an attack on women's interior lives. You're not allowed to have secrets, to carry your riches with you. Everything you have belongs to the public realm. You, my love, are for public consumption, 24/7, 365 days a year. That's the message I received when a boy told me I looked sexy in kindergarten. So, maybe when it comes to what other people wear, don't worry about it.
That's the lesson. That's what we can do, is we cannot care what other people wear. We can just not have opinions about that. Unless that's very beautiful. I hope it's as comfortable as it is beautiful. Best wishes. That we're allowed to do that.
I think that we can take joy and appreciate the way in which fashion is self-expression for other people.
Yes.
I used to be really judgy about what other people wore, but maybe the world doesn't need my running commentary on how other people choose to express themselves.
Mhm.
Just maybe. Other people's choices are just that, their choices, and mine are mine. Look, fashion is complex because ultimately it's the dance between the individual and society. The history of fashion is the history of that dance. How do I express myself as an individual, yet also feel a deep sense of belonging? The balance between these two is not, and probably never will be easy. At least not until the robots take over and we all start wearing gray uniforms.
Until gray flight suits are the order of the day, this is going to continue to be an interesting area of exploration.
That's right. So everyone, that's the It Chooses You take on fashion. It is obviously by no means an exhaustive discussion or look at such a complex issue.
In case you were concerned, we don't think you can talk about the history of fashion in an hour. So don't worry about it. We agree. We only just barely touched it.
Exactly. Just get better pockets for yourself. Do it. You owe it to yourself.
Christmas present goals for this year. Pockets for everyone.
If you're interested in checking out some of the sources we've used for this episode, please check out patreon.com/itchoosesyou.
All right. Thanks, Claire. That was amazing.
Thank you, everyone, for listening this week, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Testing. Great. Thank you for listening to It Chooses You. Your hosts are Teresa Sparks and Claire Patton. Our theme song is by Bobby Dart. If you'd like to get in touch with us, drop us an email at itchoosesyoupodcast@gmail.com.